Chapter 1260. It was peaceful in the school. Elder Bo Yen kept the incident on 10,000 Wine Mountain under wraps. Other than the few of them, no one else knew about it. Everything was the same as usual. Even the news of Chu Luiwei being locked up in the Beast Park was kept under wraps by Elder Bo Yen. On one hand, the elders in charge of patrolling knew that those who were sent there must have done something. The less they said, the less mistakes they would make. On the other hand, they were not people who liked to gossip. They knew that Bo Yen and Wan Zheng did not want this incident to spread, so they kept quiet. Hence, even if Chu Luiwei did not appear in front of everyone, no one suspected anything. In everyone's eyes, she was busy cultivating with Rong Xiu. It was normal for her to stay in Jianghu Mountain. Days like this passed for several days in a row. Fifth brother, I heard that the mystic teachers and elders are having a class together in the afternoon? On one of the mountain peaks, Luo Shishir and Zhuo Sheng had finished cultivating. They wanted to visit Luo Yanlin since they had not seen him for a long time. Unfortunately, Luo Yanlin was not around, so they went to look for Luo Yanming. Luo Shishir asked as she poured tea for the other two. A smile appeared on Luo Yanming's face as she nodded. That's right. Master said that we have always been sparring with each other. After a long time, we already know each other's styles. It's boring, so we discussed with the other elders to have a class together. This matter was actually not uncommon in the Spirit Firmament Academy. Not only mystic teachers, but martial artists and celestial physician also had such activities from time to time. To put it nicely, it was a friendly exchange. To put it bluntly, it was a battle between each other. Most of the students in the school were favored by the heavens. They had some pride in their bones and were very competitive. Of course, the elders also had a similar desire to win. When the elders had a class together, they would often personally spar with each other and demonstrate to the students. This way, the students could learn a lot and increase their strength through a certain amount of competition. Cultivation, in the end, was for the sake of becoming stronger, for the sake of establishing an invincible position in battle. There were many benefits to this, so the elders and students were happy to do so. Who are the elders that have come? Luo Shishir asked curiously. Luo Yanming thought for a moment. Other than our master, there are 3 other elders. Oh, 7th madam is here too. Does that mean 4th brother will be there too? In fact, there were many people who wanted to learn from 4th brother. Luo Yanming said with envy and admiration. Luo Yanlin had always been in the top 10 on the Mystic Cultivator ranking and was considered an absolute leader among the students. There were countless people who wanted to challenge him. After all, it was possible to learn more and faster by fighting with a powerhouse than by building a car behind closed doors. I wonder when I'll be able to catch up to 4th brother. Luo Yanlin said with some emotion. Luo Shishir comforted him. 5th brother's talent is outstanding. He will definitely be as outstanding as 4th brother in the future. Luo Yanlin shook his head. A few years ago, when 4th brother first entered the academy, he was about the same age as me. Within a month of coming to the academy, 4th brother had already made it onto the Azure Sky roll. As for me, I'm still far from it. He usually didn't say much about this, but he actually cared a lot about it. As disciples of the Luo clan, it was inevitable that they would compare themselves to each other. Luo Shishir wanted to say something but hesitated. Luo Yanlin laughed self-deprecatingly. Shishir, you don't have to think of anything to comfort me. I know it in my heart. In our Luo clan, the most talented mystic cultivator is 4th brother. Haven't we known this since we were young? I'm only saying this because I want to work hard and cultivate so that I won't be too far behind. Luo Shishir saw his sincere expression and knew that he was speaking from the bottom of his heart, so she didn't say anything else. Father and the elders have always praised 5th brother for his open-mindedness and that he has a bright future. Luo Yanming smiled. Actually, that Lin Qifei is not bad. If there's a chance this time, I'll definitely have a good spar with her. Zhuo Sheng patted his shoulder hard. I support you. There's just one thing. Have you seen Chu Yu recently? Luo Yanming asked. That night, we agreed to have a chat when we had time. But it's been a few days, and I haven't even seen his shadow. Compared to Lin Qifei, he actually wanted to spar with Chu Yu more. This was because when Elder Huafeng mentioned Lin Qifei, his reaction was not as big as when he mentioned Chu Yu. This made Luo Yanming suspect that Chu Yu's talent in this aspect might be even stronger than Lin Qifei's. We haven't seen him either. Luo Shishir shook her head. He might be busy cultivating with senior brother Rong Xiu in Jianghu Mountain. Anyway, I haven't heard any news about senior brother Rong Xiu these few days. Probably, Luo Yanming didn't think too much about it. Then I'll wait for him to come out before I look for him. Dong. The sound of a bell rang. Luo Yanming stood up and looked in a certain direction. It's time for class. I'll be leaving first. Let's talk another day. With that, he tapped his toes and quickly left. Luo Shishir and Zhuoxing didn't stay any longer and quickly left. When Luo Yanming arrived, there were already many people gathered halfway up the mountain. Obviously, these were all people who were going to class together today. Some of them looked familiar to him. They were all Elder Huafeng students, but he didn't know most of them. They were probably the other Elder's students. Luo Yanming quickly looked around and found that his fourth brother, Luo Yanlin, hadn't appeared yet, so he found a few familiar friends and went to meet them. Because the elders hadn't arrived yet, the atmosphere was still relatively free and casual. Everyone stood in groups of 3 or 5 and talked about something from time to time. Of course, most of them were about today's class. This time, I want to challenge senior brother Luo Yanlin. I wonder if he will agree. Him? I think it's better to forget it. How can our standards be enough? Isn't it important to participate? It's a rare opportunity to fight with senior brother Luo Yanlin. It's good that you know. In my opinion, instead of placing all your hopes on someone who's unlikely to agree, why don't you change to someone who's not as strong and has less requirements? Hey, isn't that Jiang Jiwan? She's here today too? Her master, Elder Dan Qing, is also one of the elders in today's class. Isn't it normal for her to come? But then again, she's not a bad opponent to challenge. I think you have an ulterior motive? Why do you care? A fair and virtuous woman is a gentleman's mate. Once, she was infatuated with senior brother Rong Xiu and ignored everyone else. But now, senior brother Rong Xiu already had a princess. She should look at the others, right? All kinds of words came, making Jiang Jiwan's already depressed mood even worse. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1261. She hadn't received any reply since she sent the letter a few days ago. Logically speaking, after such a long time, the letter should have reached the Immortal Water Mausoleum by now. But for some reason, there wasn't any movement from the other side. If it was in the past, even if her father hadn't found anything, he would have sent her a letter to comfort her. This time, it was really strange. For the past 2 days, she even started to have insomnia at night. She couldn't sleep well, so she didn't have much energy during the day and looked especially haggard. A toad lusting after a swan's meat. Liang Xiaoxiao, who was standing at the side, also heard those words and couldn't help but curse in a low voice. How dare they dream of gaining your favor, Xin? They're daydreaming. Even if you're not the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower, you're still not someone they can dream of. Don't you think so, Ziyuan? As she spoke, she looked at Jiang Jiwan. But when she looked, she realized that Jiang Jiwan didn't seem to be listening to her. Her eyes weren't focused, and her expression was dazed. It seemed like she was in a daze. Liang Xiaoxiao frowned, and a trace of dissatisfaction flashed through her heart. She was praising and comforting her out of goodwill, but she wasn't listening at all. Ziyuan? Liang Xiaoxiao's expression quickly returned to normal, and she called Jiang Jiwan twice. Jiang Jiwan came back to her senses. HM? What's wrong? Liang Xiaoxiao felt even more uncomfortable, and she smiled. Nothing, what are you thinking about? Why are you so engrossed? Jiang Jiwan lowered her eyes. I miss Daddy a little. I haven't been back for so long. I wonder how things are at the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Liang Xiaoxiao almost laughed out loud. Miss Daddy? Others might believe Jiang Jiwan's words, but she didn't take half a word seriously. They'd known each other for a long time. In the years before Jiang Jiwan entered the academy, She spent most of her time at the Immortal Water Mausoleum. She didn't even have the chance to go to the Yuntian Tower because her father kept urging her to cultivate diligently. Jiang Jiwan's father doted on her, but this doting came with conditions. If Jiang Jiwan wasn't outstanding enough, she wouldn't have had everything she had today. The Immortal Water Mausoleum, Jiang Jiwan herself said she was tired of staying there. Ever since she entered the Spirit Firmament Academy, she wished she could stay here forever, free and unrestrained. She had never said anything like missing her father and home. It was obvious that this was just a casual excuse. With the other party's attitude, Liang Xiaoxiao naturally didn't want to be snubbed. Ziyuan, Ziyun, TSS, Ziyun, T, Ziyuan, S. Since you want to, why don't you ask your master for a leave of absence? Ziyuan, Ziyuan, Ziyuans, Ziyuan, Ziyuan, Ziyuan. If it were any other time, Jiang Ziyuan would have immediately noticed Liang Xiaoxiao's displeasure and coaxed her to ease their relationship. I'll go after today's class is over. Liang Xiaoxiao almost laughed out of anger when she heard Jiang Jiwan's words. She lost interest in continuing the conversation. After waiting for a while, she found an excuse and went to the side to chat with the others. Jiang Jiwan's mind was a little muddle-headed, so she didn't even care about this. Not long after, the elders arrived. Other than Elder Huafeng, Elder Dan Qing, 7th Madam, and Elder Shu Feng, there was also Elder Huafeng. The students quieted down when they saw them arrive. They looked at them with excitement and curiosity. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that when these few elders gathered together, it was definitely a top-notch lineup. There were hundreds of elders in Lingxiao College, and almost 1/3 of them were mystic masters. There would always be differences in strength among cultivators. The elders were no exception. And these people were all recognized by everyone as the most powerful peak existences. The students were naturally excited. The 4 elders first formed groups of 2, and each of them carried out a battle. After the demonstration, he gave the students some time to study on their own. Finally, it was time for the students to challenge each other. This was also the segment that everyone paid the most attention to. Many students quickly chose their own opponents to spar with. There were also some people who came to look for Jiang Jiwan, but they were all rejected by her. After the 5th young man was rejected, he didn't leave like the previous people. He only smiled at Jiang Jiwan and said, "Zion, we've known each other for 2 years. You should know how I feel about you. In the past, I didn't say much because I knew that your heart belonged to someone else. But now, it's impossible between you and him. Why can't you consider me?" Hearing that Rong Xiu was involved, Jiang Jiwan finally raised her head. She frowned and stared at him. She had some impression of this man. The relationship between them was still all right, but that was all. If he could speak properly, she would still be able to politely reply to him. Unfortunately, the last 2 sentences that he said just now really made her feel disgusted. She suppressed the anger in her heart and said, "If you like him, you like him. If you don't like him, you don't like him. This kind of thing can't be forced." Seeing that she was still like this, the man couldn't help but reach out to pull her. Jiang Jiwan immediately dodged, and a trace of disgust flashed across her eyes. This expression immediately made the man angry out of humiliation. He said in a deep voice, "Senior Rong Xiu already has a princess. No matter what you do, can you take back the position of princess?" Jiang Jiwan also exploded and couldn't help but raise her voice. "That woman is inferior to me in every aspect. What right does she have to occupy the position of princess consort? That position was originally mine." Chapter 1262. The man's expression changed when he heard this. Jiang Jiwan also regained her senses, and her heart skipped a beat. How could she say such things in front of everyone? Even if that was what she was thinking, or even if many people were thinking the same thing, she shouldn't have said such things. The surroundings quieted down. Some of the people standing nearby looked over. Their expressions were different, and their gazes were subtle. Jiang Jiwan felt like there was a dagger at her back, and she wanted to find a hole to hide in. There were some things that others could say, but she couldn't say. Previously, she had been hinting that she was the one who had been robbed of her love. Many people didn't know much about the situation at the Yuntian Tower, so they believed her words and thought that she had been wronged. They sympathized with her and loved her. But if she said it out loud, the nature of the situation would change completely. Wasn't she telling everyone that she had always regarded the position of princess consort as her own? I didn't mean that. Jianghu panicked and wanted to explain. But after stammering for a long time, she couldn't come up with a reasonable excuse. The more nervous she was, the more she didn't know how to salvage the situation. Senior Jianghu. Right at this moment, an indifferent and cold voice sounded out, breaking this stiff and cold atmosphere. Jianghu immediately turned her head and saw that the person who spoke was a young man who looked about 20 years old. He was wearing a green robe and he was tall and handsome. Just by standing there, he looked like an ink painting. His eyes were much lighter than the average person's, and it made him look more distant. Lin Qifei? Jianghu remembered that she had seen this face before. If she remembered correctly, this person was the first one to enter the master roll of honor among the new students. At the same time, he was the young master of the Lin family at Grotto Heaven Cliff. Back then, Chu Luwei disguised himself and went to the Yuntian Tower with them. Thinking of this, Jiang Xuan felt a little annoyed in her heart. She loathed everything related to that woman. "Why are you looking for me?" Jiang Jiwan's tone was obviously much colder. Lin Qifei didn't seem to mind and smiled. "There's one thing. I heard that senior martial sister Jiang Jiwan's cultivation as a mystic cultivator is quite outstanding. Qifei would like to ask for guidance. Is that possible?" So it was because of this. Jiang Jiwan sneered in her heart, but on the surface, she looked indifferent. "Junior brother Lin, you've just ascended to the Azure Sky role, so it's inevitable that you're young and impetuous." It was understandable that he wanted to find someone to challenge. However, you have to carefully choose your candidates. There are many mystic cultivators present who can spar with you. You don't have to waste your time with me." These words sounded polite on the surface, but in reality, they were mocking Lin Qifei for not being strong enough and overestimating himself. As long as one had a temper, it was inevitable that they would get angry. However, Lin Qifei's expression was normal when he heard this, as if he didn't care. Senior martial sister Jiang Jiwan is right. People who are weak indeed shouldn't try to compete with people who are much stronger than them. Otherwise, the one who will be humiliated and injured in the end will be themselves. Jiang Jiwan's expression changed. This was blatantly scolding her. Even if one used their toes to think, they would know that Lin Qifei was hinting at what had happened to the people of Cloud Heaven Tower that day. She had lost to that Chu Luwei several times in a row. "What are you trying to say?" Jiang Jiwan had lost her patience. Lin Qifei smiled. "What I wanted to say was what I said just now. Did senior martial sister Jiang Jiwan not hear me clearly?" He raised his chin slightly, and his eyes gradually turned cold. "I wanted to ask senior martial sister Jiang Jiwan to spar with me, but senior martial sister Jiang didn't seem willing to agree. However, I don't think the gap between me and senior martial sister Jiang is as big as you think." Jiang Jiwan was so angry that she laughed. "What did you say? Did he mean that she was arrogant and conceited?" "Junior martial brother Lin, do you think that you're invincible just because you're on the Azure Cloud roll? Don't forget that there are dozens of people between you and me in that regard." At this moment, the commotion had attracted the attention of many people. Most people thought that Lin Qifei was a little arrogant. He was very outstanding, but Jiang Jiwan had been in the academy for several years, and she was publicly recognized as one of the best. She was ranked at the top of the Azure Cloud roll. He actually said that, wasn't he thinking too highly of himself? However, Lin Qifei didn't seem to care about the opinions of the people around him. He looked at Jiang Jiwan and said, "Senior martial sister Jiang, if you don't believe me, you can give it a try." This was a challenge that couldn't be any more direct. No, it could be said that he was provoking her. "Are you sure?" Jiang Jiwan sized up Lin Qifei and narrowed her eyes. "Junior martial brother Lin, it's good to be bold, but sometimes, if you don't know how to restrain yourself, you'll bring trouble to yourself. I'll give you one last piece of advice, you're on your own." Lin Qifei glanced at her, and the corners of his mouth hooked up without a smile. Thank you for your advice, Senior Martial Sister Jianghu. My courage is really nothing compared to yours. He spoke slowly, enunciating each and every word clearly. After all, you even dared to distort the truth in front of so many people? What do I not dare to do? Jiang Jiwon's heart sank. She tried to control her anger and forced a smile. Junior Martial Brother Lin, what do you mean by that? I don't understand. The position of the princess consort is decided through a competition. That day, you lost from the beginning to the end, but you didn't know that the princess consort is inferior to you in every aspect. Senior Martial Sister Jiang Jun, how did you say that? With every word Lin Qifei said, Jiang Jiwon's face turned paler. By the end, her face was pale and her body was trembling. She opened her mouth, but couldn't say anything to refute him. Because what Lin Qifei said was true. She lost to Chu Luiyue in more than one aspect. Seeing that Jiang Jiwon didn't refute him, the crowd gradually realized something and looked at each other. Most of them didn't know much about what happened at the Yuntian Tower. Occasionally, they heard some news, but it was mostly from Jiang Jiwon and the others. Why was Lin Qifei's words so different from what Jiang Jiwon said before? Senior Martial Sister Jiang Jiwon. Since you lost, you can also say that you won. Even if I lose, it shouldn't be a big problem, right? Lin Qifei asked. Why don't we have a competition to see who will win? Beast Park. Everything was calm. Elder Yu looked in a certain direction and frowned in confusion. It has been a few days. Why is there still no news from Chu Yu's side? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1263. He originally thought that it would be good enough if Chu Yu could survive one night. Who knew that Chu Yu had not sent out any signal for help until now? And from the situation of the Xian formation in the Beast Park, he was indeed fine and seemed to be staying in one place all the time. Could it be that he found an excellent hiding place? Elder Yu thought to himself. But the mythical beasts in the Beast Park were not so good-tempered. For some reason, the mythical beasts did not cause any trouble until today. He thought for a while and decided to wait a little longer. If Chu Yu could really survive a month in here, then he would really have a whole new level of respect for Chu Yu. Chu Luiyue, who was in the cave, had almost forgotten about the passage of time. The surrounding force of heaven and earth surged into her body and flowed through her limbs and bones before finally gathering in her dantian. As the surrounding force of heaven and earth increased, the 7 lines on the water droplet became brighter and brighter. But sensing this movement, Chu Luiyue was unable to relax. Because, according to her original calculations, she should have broken through a few days ago. But for some reason, all kinds of force of heaven and earth were circulating in her dantian, and there was no movement until today. Chu Luiyue was puzzled. Breaking through to the peak of rank 7 was not a difficult thing for her. According to her past experience, she would be able to break through in less than a day. But now, the situation was developing in an unknown direction. After thinking for a while, Chu Luiyue decided to wait patiently and continued to devour the surrounding force of heaven and earth. After some time, finally, there was a slight fluctuation in her dantian. Then, a vigorous force surged out from within. This force had a trace of a familiar aura. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a while before she realized that this force seemed to be the force of heaven and earth that she had inherited from Taizu of the northern underworld. Ever since she had devoured all of this force of heaven and earth, it had quietly entered the water droplet and did not cause any movement. Chu Luiyue did not expect that this force of heaven and earth would suddenly surge out at this moment. After a long period of nourishment and refinement in the water droplet, this force of heaven and earth had become extremely pure. In an instant, it surged towards Chu Luiyue's body. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Then, she felt waves of piercing pain all over her body. She was startled, but she immediately understood something. This force of heaven and earth was going to help her break through to rank 8. After realizing this, Chu Luiyue made a prompt decision and began to guide the force of heaven and earth. Although she did not know why this happened, it was a rare opportunity. Since she could directly break through to rank 8, why not give it a try? Under Chu Liyue's intentional control, the originally messy and chaotic force started to flow into her Yuan meridian in an orderly manner. The Tianjing Yuan meridian's endurance was much stronger than the Daijing Yuan meridian's. Hence, after the initial piercing pain, Chu Liyue's body quickly adapted to the strong impact. During this process, some of the power had also silently fused into her flesh and bones. The force of heaven and earth continued to surge out of the water droplet. After all, it was the force of heaven and earth left behind by a god-rank powerhouse. Its power could not be underestimated. This force of heaven and earth was stored in the water droplet. Chu Liyue had never paid much attention to it. It was only now that she began to devour this force of heaven and earth that she realized how terrifying it was. As she continued to absorb this force of heaven and earth into her body, her aura began to strengthen rapidly. If anyone else was here, they would be shocked to see this scene. Because Chu Liyue's speed of devouring the force of heaven and earth was too shocking. When ordinary cultivators tried to break through to rank 8, they would need to make sufficient preparations. To put it bluntly, they had to accumulate enough force of heaven and earth to break through to rank 8. For a martial artist, the higher they broke through, the more experience they needed. In fact, the force of heaven and earth that Chu Liyue was mobilizing had far exceeded that of ordinary cultivators. Chu Liyue also realized this point, so she could only continue to circulate the force of heaven and earth. She had long known that when the water droplet in her body wanted to break through, she would need to spend more force than others. Early stage to middle stage to peak, at least they were at the same stage, so it was not that difficult. However, every time he advanced in rank, the situation would become very troublesome. Not to mention other things, just the last time she broke through to rank 7, she had spent a lot of effort. She did not expect that the endless force of heaven and earth that she devoured would come in handy during this breakthrough. A soft sound was heard. The 7th line on the water droplet finally became as bright as the other lines. However, this was only the beginning. Chu Liyue held her breath and did not dare to be careless. She continued to increase her strength and urged the force of heaven and earth to circulate. Boom! A loud sound suddenly came from the sky. Dark clouds gathered and the wind howled. The sky quickly darkened. Qiong, who was guarding the cave entrance, looked up and then turned back as if she sensed something. Is she going to break through consecutively? At the same time, Elder Yu, who was a few mountains away, heard the commotion and was also very surprised. He frowned slightly. Why is the sky turning dark so quickly? No. Suddenly, his expression changed. That kid is going to break through? He tapped the tip of his foot and immediately flew in that direction. Breaking through in the Beast Park. Is this kid courting death? Digression, midnight has begun. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1264. It was dark between heaven and earth. The wind swept the clouds away and whistled past. Such a situation caused the magical beasts in the Beast Park to become restless. Some of them even started to move toward the mountain where Chu Liyue was. The wind was chilling and the air was cold. However, Chu Liyue, who was preparing to break through in the cave, was unaware of all this. After breaking through to the peak of level 7, Chu Liyue did not stop at all. She continued to devour the surrounding energy of heaven and earth. Then, it merged with the energy that surged out from the water droplets in her body. Finally, it seeped into every inch of her muscles, blood, and bones. Her body was like a black hole. No matter how much energy entered her body, she could easily accommodate it. Of course, there were also benefits after breaking through to the peak of level 7. The speed at which she circulated her energy became faster. Chu Liyue closed her eyes tightly. Her mind was clear. There was only one thought in her mind, to break through to level 8. Outside the cave, Qiong, who was in charge of guarding the cave, scratched the ground uneasily. It looked at the surroundings. It was already evening. In addition, Chu Luiwei was about to break through. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and the light was even dimmer. Many things could not be seen clearly. As far as the eye could see, it could only see the dark, undulating mountain range. Some soft sounds came from all directions. A hint of alertness flashed across Ah Qiong's eyes. When Elder Yu Yu arrived, the first thing he saw was such a scene. A huge adult steel spine beast was standing in front of a cave. It was majestic and vigilant. Its reaction was extremely sensitive. The moment Elder Yu Yu arrived, it sensed his aura and looked up. Elder Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat. This steel spine beast was looking at him with eyes full of hostility and warning. It was as if it would fight to the death if he took another step forward. Elder Yu Yu frowned. This steel spine beast. What's wrong with it? He had been in the beast park for quite some time. The magical beasts here were more or less familiar with him. Under normal circumstances, both parties were more polite when they met. It was rare for them to quarrel. But this time, this steel spine beast took such a stance when it saw him. It was really strange. It looked as if it was protecting its cub, but the commotion came from inside the cave. Logically speaking, the one inside should be Chu Yu. Elder Yu Yu was puzzled, but he did not dare to act rashly. The demonic beasts in the beast park were usually quite restrained. However, they were not contracted. The pride and wildness in their bones determined that they were definitely not easy to deal with. At this moment, some strange noises came from the surroundings. Elder Yu Yu looked serious. There were quite a few magical beasts in the forest, and they were all approaching this place. Their target was the cave. This made him even more certain of his guess. Chu Yu must be in the cave, preparing to break through. When cultivators were breaking through, they would often draw upon the energy of heaven and earth. However, in the beast park, there were a large number of high-level magical beasts and even mythical beasts. They had a natural thirst for power. Under normal circumstances, they would restrain themselves. But magical beasts who were preparing to break through could activate a large amount of energy. Unfortunately, they were very weak now. Therefore, in the eyes of the magical beasts, they became a piece of fat meat. At this time, many magical beasts would fight for this piece of fat meat. Chu Yu breaking through in this place at this time, wasn't this putting himself in danger? Elder Yu Yu was anxious. But at the same time, the steel spine beast's reaction made him even more puzzled. Could it be? It was protecting Chu Yu? As soon as this thought flashed through his mind, Elder Yu Yu subconsciously shook his head. How could it be? Adult steel spine beasts were magical beasts. They were ruthless, cold, and merciless. They were especially wary of humans. He had stayed in the beast park for so long. It was difficult for him to even get close to them. Not to mention Chu Yu, who had just arrived a few days ago. But looking at the steel spine beast, other than this, he could not think of any other explanation. After thinking about it, Elder Yu Yu decided to wait and see. If something really happened, it would not be too late for him to take action. The people outside did not know about the undercurrent in the beast park. Halfway up the mountain, Lin Qifei's words left Jianghu with no way out. Countless pairs of eyes looked over. Their gazes were different. Jianghu heart was filled with resentment toward Lin Qifei. He did it on purpose. Okay, I promise you. Jianghu raised her voice. Lin Qifei smiled. Then I'll have to trouble you, senior sister Jianghu. After saying that, the two of them prepared to start the battle. The onlookers looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement and curiosity. Elder Hua Feng and the others also noticed the situation here and looked over. Shu Feng, your new disciple is quite arrogant. Elder Dan Qing said with an indifferent expression. You've only been in the academy for less than 3 months, yet you already have such courage. Your courage is truly commendable. How could Elder Shu Feng not hear the sarcasm and disdain in those words? Instead, he was not angry. Instead, he laughed. Ha! Although Ji Fei usually doesn't talk much, he is indeed a person with a temperament. If you want to become strong, you have to have the courage to challenge the strong, right? However, this child has always been steady. He usually won't do things that he isn't sure of. Today's battle? Actually, I'm also very curious about who will win. Elder Dan Qing's face darkened. He sneered in his heart. Lin Qifei had a domineering personality. Now, even Xu Feng had become like this. How could a brat who had just entered the Azure Cloud role be a match for Jiang Jiwan? He flicked his sleeves and said coldly, "It's good for young people to suffer more and suffer more setbacks." Elder Xu Feng raised his eyebrows and pretended not to hear anything. He changed the topic. "Actually, that's not important. After all, this is just a small competition. The most important thing is for everyone to learn from each other and improve their strength." On the other hand, Jiang Jiwan. "Dan Qing, I saw that she has been in a daze today. She doesn't seem to be in a good state?" Elder Dan Qing frowned. In fact, he had noticed this as well. Based on his understanding of Jiang Jiwan, she should have encountered some trouble. Coupled with what Lin Qifei had said just now, her expression looked even worse. Actually, everyone has times when they are haggard and tired. This is normal. But no matter what, there are some things that shouldn't be said carelessly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1265. Elder Danqing's heart seemed to be clenched by something. He turned his head and looked at Elder Xu Feng with a frown. Rong Xiu isn't here, but that doesn't mean he didn't hear those words. Elder Xu Feng didn't seem to notice the warning in the other party's eyes as he spoke leisurely. That princess consort was personally chosen by Rong Xiu, which is enough to show his feelings. Moreover, when Rong Xiu returned to the academy, he admitted that the princess consort was the person he truly loved. If he knew that Jiang Jiwan had slandered that princess consort in front of so many people and even claimed that the position of princess consort was hers, with his personality, he wouldn't let this matter go so easily. "Dan Qing, what do you think?" Elder Danqing's expression changed slightly. Rong Xiu was tough and ruthless. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to ascend to the position of the Holy Sun and take charge of the Yuntian Tower in just a few years. If he really wanted to pursue this matter, he was afraid that Jiang Jiwan's end would not be any better. In fact, in the past few years, Jiang Jiwan had deliberately made her relationship with Rong Xiu sound very ambiguous. It wasn't the first time that outsiders misunderstood. However, Rong Xiu was no longer in the academy at that time, so he naturally didn't care. However, it was different now. Rong Xiu was here, and if he wanted to know anything, he would definitely know everything. Elder Danqing's heart slowly sank. Others might not know, but as Jiang Jiwan's master, he knew best what Rong Xiu's attitude toward her. What childhood sweethearts, what elders' agreement. In fact, it was all just Jiang Jiwan's wishful thinking. Now, the princess consort was living well in the Yuntian Tower. How could she allow others to slander her? "I will deal with this matter," Elder Dan Qing said in a low voice. "I won't trouble others to teach my own student." Elder Xu Feng knew that he had taken it seriously, so he smiled and didn't say anything else. Although Dan Qing was stubborn and had seen many storms, his mind was still clear. Unfortunately, Jiang Jiwan didn't have that brain. Rong Xiu was in the academy, and she dared to say such things in front of so many people. Elder Xu Feng stroked his beard. "I'm afraid Jiang Ziyuan's future days won't be easy." Lin Qifei and Jiang Jiwan were facing each other. Between the two and Rong Xiu was a floating chessboard. The two of them took turns to make their moves. In the beginning, Rong Xiu zest, but gradually she realized that something was wrong with the situation. Every time she took a step, Lin Qifei would quickly follow, and the position of his piece was always accurate. He didn't seem to need any time to react, and his movements were extremely agile. In the beginning, Jiang Jiwan could still deceive herself, comforting herself that it was just the beginning and the game hadn't started yet. Lin Qifei had a lot of room to play, which was why he could play so smoothly. However, as time passed, more and more pieces appeared on the chessboard, and the situation became more and more complicated. Even Jiang Jiwan had to think twice before placing a piece. But Lin Qifei didn't seem to be affected at all, and was still as sharp as before. At this point, Jiang Jiwan finally felt a little powerless. She quickly looked up, but saw that Lin Qifei's expression was as calm as ever. Sensing her gaze, Lin Qifei smiled and nodded at her. Jiang Ji1 gritted her teeth. From her point of view, Lin Qifei's reaction was clearly a provocation. However, no matter how upset she was, she couldn't reverse the current situation. She became more and more anxious, and cold sweat started to form on her forehead. At this time, the onlookers had also noticed that something was wrong. They secretly exchanged meaningful glances with each other. They were all Xian masters, so of course, they could see that something was fishy. Looking at the current situation, it was obvious that Jiang Ji1 was at a disadvantage. I didn't expect Lin Qifei to be so strong. He couldn't have been hiding his strength before, right? I think it's most likely so. You have to know that Jiang Ji1's ranking on the Azure Cloud roll is much higher than his. But looking at the situation, Lin Qifei is actually half a head above her. If Jiang Ji1 really loses, wouldn't she lose all her face? The strong are respected. If she can't do it, someone will replace her sooner or later. I think she hasn't put much effort into her cultivation, so it's normal for her to be overtaken. I think so too. Didn't Lin Qifei just say that the princess consort of the Yuntian Tower actually won against her fair and square? That's not what she said before. If you lose, can you announce it to the others with great fanfare? Actually, I felt that something was wrong from the start. Rong Xiu is the holy son of the Yuntian Tower. How noble is his status? How could he casually marry an ordinary girl as his princess consort? Who knows how much of what Jiang Ji1 said is true and how much of it is false? Although the person who spoke had tried to lower his voice, everyone present was not weak, so they could more or less hear it. Including Jiang Ji1. She felt even more sullen in her heart, but at this time, she couldn't even say a word of rebuttal. Because what they said was the truth. When everyone didn't know the truth, she might still be able to speak ambiguously. But once they understood, she couldn't continue like that. Because when the truth came out, the liar would often be the most embarrassed. Suddenly, a sound came from the chessboard. Jiang Ji1 came back to her senses and looked over, but was shocked to find that Lin Qifei's move had cut off her path. Lin Qifei said indifferently, "Senior sister Jiang Ji1, you lost." These few casual words were like a heavy stone that ruthlessly smashed into Jiang Ziyuan's heart. Her mind went blank for a moment, and she almost couldn't believe everything in front of her. She was just distracted for a moment. How did it become like this? However, on the chessboard, she was indeed completely cut. She really lost. This realization made Jiang Ji1's legs go weak, and she almost fell to the ground. The young man who wanted to challenge her before quickly stepped forward to support her. "Zun, are you all right?" Jiang Ji1 pushed him away, as if she was afraid of being contaminated by something dirty. The young man's expression darkened, and he silently retreated. Lin Qifei raised his eyebrows slightly. "Senior sister Jiang Ji1, it seems that your strength hasn't increased since you returned from the Yuntian Tower." These words were like a slap to Jiang Ji1's face. She stared at the chessboard, took a deep breath, and suppressed the anger in her heart with great difficulty. "I've been neglecting my cultivation recently. Thank you, junior brother Lin, for your correction." After saying that, she turned around and walked in the direction of the elders. Elder Danqing took a step forward with some worry. "Zun, Master, I want to take a leave of absence." Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1266. Jiang Ziyuan didn't wait for Elder Danqing to finish speaking and spoke first. "Junior brother Lin is right. I've been in a bad state recently, so I want to go home for a while and adjust my condition before coming back." Elder Danqing did not expect her to have such a plan and was slightly stunned. "Ziyuan, if you have any difficulties, feel free to tell me. If there's anything I can help you with, I'll do my best." Although Jiang Ji1 was a little stubborn, she was still his favorite student for several years, so Elder Danqing did not want to be too harsh on her. In the past few years, he had spent a lot of effort on Jiang Ji1. He once thought that even if she could not become a top existence like Rong Xiu, she would be better than most people. Seeing her like this, he felt sorry for her. Jianghu shook her head and forced a smile. Thank you for your kindness, master. But this time, I've disappointed you. It's all my fault. But don't worry, I'll come back as soon as possible after going home to adjust. Seeing that she had made up her mind, Elder Danqing knew that it was useless to persuade her anymore, so he could only nod and agree. All right, whenever you want to come back, I'll be waiting for you. Today, she had made a serious slip of the tongue in front of everyone and lost to Lin Qifei. It would be good for her to leave for a while. It would not be too late for her to come back after the storm subsided. Jiang Jiwan smiled gratefully. Thank you, master. That student will take her leave today. Elder Danqing sighed inwardly and nodded. Only then did Jiang Jiwan turn around and leave. Everyone looked at each other. She's leaving just like that? The class isn't over yet. She already lost to Lin Qifei in the competition, so why would she care about class? If I were her, I would leave too. Could it be that she can't afford to lose? It's good to have a background. She can leave and come back whenever she wants. She can do whatever she wants. Some very unpleasant words entered Jiang Jiwan's ears. She clenched her fists tightly in her sleeves and tried hard to control her expression. She stopped in front of Lin Qifei. Lin Qifei seemed to sense something and looked up. Jiang Zun suddenly smiled, but the corners of her eyes and the tips of her eyebrows were still cold. Junior brother Lin, I didn't expect you to be so protective of her. You're even willing to stand up for her. If she knew about this, she would definitely be very touched, right? Her tone was very sincere, as if she was really just praising Lin Qifei. However, if one thought about it for a moment, one would feel that something was wrong. There seemed to be some ambiguity in his words. Lin Qifei's eyelids were slightly raised. In his clear pupils, there was a hint of a mocking smile. Cave Heaven Cliff is one of the 28 divisions of the Yuntian Tower. It is our duty to protect the princess. I wonder how Senior Marshal Brother Rong Xiu would react if he knew what Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwan did today? Jiang Jiwan's expression changed. This is Lingxiao College, not the Immortal Water Mausoleum. Senior Marshal Sister Jiang Jiwan, you should be more careful with your words and actions in the future. Jiang Jiwan was so angry that she laughed. Alright, Junior Brother Lin, I'll come back another day to challenge you. After saying that, she lifted her feet and left quickly. She couldn't do anything to Lin Qifei in the school, but once she left, Cave Heaven Cliff would be at the mercy of the Immortal Water Mausoleum. When she returned, she would definitely teach them a lesson. After Jiang Jiwan left, the crowd fell silent for a while, then quickly returned to normal. One Jiang Jiwan was not enough for them to waste so much time and energy. The students of Lingxiao College all understood that no matter what, being strong was the most important thing. The sparring matches between the people continued. However, this time, there were clearly fewer people who wanted to challenge Lin Qifei. They had thought that he was a newcomer, but who knew that he was actually a hidden talent? Now, whoever wanted to challenge him would have to think twice about it. After some hesitation, the person who fought Lin Qifei in the end was Luo Yanming. Unsurprisingly, Luo Yanming was also defeated after a bitter battle. At this time, everyone realized that Lin Qifei's talent was even stronger than they had expected. Elder Hua Feng couldn't help but smack his lips. This Lin Qifei wasn't very conspicuous before, but I didn't expect him to be so outstanding. Shu Feng, you've made a fortune this time. Elder Shu Feng was also very happy. He smiled so much that the wrinkles on his face trembled. Of course, among the new students in the past few months, no one would dare to say that he was the second most talented Xian master among them. The most important thing was that his personality was very calm, so he didn't need to worry about him at all. Elder Hua Feng raised his eyebrows. That's not. Before he could finish speaking, he thought for a moment and swallowed the rest of his words. Elder Shu Feng asked, "What did you say?" Elder Hua Feng smiled and shook his head. "Nothing. Teach this disciple well. Don't let him go astray." Elder Shu Feng laughed loudly. "How can I be so picky? Don't worry. This disciple of mine is very honest and dutiful. Moreover, he has always been very interested in teleportation formations and has been studying this recently. By the way, aren't you very good at this too? When you have time, why don't you give him some pointers? Elder Hua Feng laughed heartily and naturally agreed. In the Beast Park, night fell. The wind and clouds surged between heaven and earth. Elder Yu Yu stood in midair and stared at the mountain peak below, waiting to make a move at any time. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1267. Suddenly, a sharp and painful cry resounded through the forest. Elder Yu Yu looked over and vaguely saw a steelback beast cub at the foot of the mountain. It was running back, stumbling along the way. He recognized at a glance that this was the baby steel spine beast that had just been born not long ago. It seemed to be injured as it limped while running. A line of blood vaguely appeared behind it. Elder Yu Yu went closer and took a closer look. He saw that there was a bloody hole in one of the baby's hind legs. It looked like some ferocious beast had forcefully bitten off a large piece of flesh. The white bones could almost be seen. Elder Yu Yu was shocked. The steel spine beast had rough skin and thick flesh. Among the magical beasts in the Beast Park, its physical strength could definitely be ranked in the top 3. To be able to injure it to such an extent, it was definitely not an ordinary magical beast. From the looks of it, it was most likely, but these magical beasts usually stayed out of each other's way. Why would they suddenly start fighting? Needless to say, this was still a baby. Injuring it would undoubtedly offend the adult steel spine beast. This time, it would probably be a fight to the death. Just as Elder Yu Yu was thinking about these questions, the baby steel spine beast had already started running up the mountain peak. As it ran, it constantly let out sorrowful cries for help. Chiong, who was in charge of guarding the entrance of the cave, heard this familiar sound and immediately looked down the mountain. Their night vision was extremely strong. Even though the sky was already dark, Chiong was still able to see the scene below very quickly. A strong smell of blood assaulted them. Chiong's expression changed. Only then did she see the wound on her baby's leg. Swoosh! The steel needles on its back instantly stood up. A trace of biting cold murderous intent flashed across its eyes. Roar! It angrily raised its head and let out an angry roar. This roar was vigorous and powerful, and it instantly spread mightily through the forest. All the magical beasts knew that this was a warning. Hearing its mother's voice, the baby steel spine beast felt much more at ease. But very quickly, it was shocked to discover that the magical beast chasing after it did not stop. In fact, its speed seemed to be even faster. Swoosh! The one behind suddenly pounced. The cub hurriedly dodged and almost stumbled to the ground. During this process, its body fell onto a broken piece of wood, and a thick branch that stretched out diagonally stabbed into its wound. Roar! The steelback beast cub let out a pained hiss. But at this moment, it couldn't care less. It struggled to get up and continued to run up the mountain. Go home. As long as he returned to his mother's side, he would be safe. With that thought in mind, it ran back with all its might. Chiong saw all of this. There seemed to be 2 balls of fire burning in its eyes, as if it wanted to burn everything in front of it to ashes. It lifted its foot and was about to rush over when it suddenly remembered that Chu Liwei was still cultivating in the cave behind it, preparing to break through. If it left now, Chu Liwei would be completely exposed to danger. It knew all too well what kind of trouble a human would attract when he broke through in the Beast Park. Chiong was struggling in her heart. In front of him was his only bloodline, and behind him was his savior. It was almost unable to make a decision. At the foot of the mountain, another cry of pain was heard. It was just that this voice was clearly much weaker than it had been at the beginning. It didn't need to look to know that its child was definitely in danger now. Its innate maternal instinct made it want to abandon everything in front of it and rush over immediately. But a trace of obsession in the depths of its heart nailed it to the ground. Finally, it lifted its leg and stomped down heavily. Boom! With this stomp, almost half of the mountain began to shake and shake. Cracks began to spread from its feet to the ground. The terrifying pressure was like a gust of wind, surging towards the ground. Before Chu Liwei broke through, it couldn't leave this place. Normally, each family of magical beasts occupied their own territory and didn't interfere with each other. Once there was any action that crossed the boundary, they would receive warnings and threats. Most of the time, such warnings were effective. This was because in the Beast Park, there was not a single magical beast that could dominate the entire Beast Park. Everyone kept each other in check, forming a subtle balance. But now, this balance was broken. The other party had ignored Qiong's repeated warnings and was going to continue attacking no matter what. Other than accepting the challenge, there was no other way. Qiong couldn't leave at all, so how could it fight? Its cub's cries gradually weakened. Qiong looked down and could clearly see that its speed had slowed down a lot, and its body was already dripping with blood. Obviously, it couldn't hold on for much longer. There seemed to be a fire burning in its heart, and a trace of blood appeared in its eyes. This cry was sorrowful and almost crazy, but it still guarded the entrance of the cave and didn't move an inch. How could this be? Not far away, Elder Yu saw this scene and was shocked. What was that adult steel spine beast thinking? The one at the foot of the mountain that was on the verge of death was its cub. At this time, shouldn't it immediately rush over and protect it with all its might? Why was it still guarding the entrance of the cave without moving until now? Was the one in the cave really Chuyu? Elder Yu couldn't understand. Could it be that to it, Chuyu was more important than its bloodlines? If he didn't see it with his own eyes, he wouldn't dare to believe that such a thing would happen. If this matter were to spread, others would probably think that he was joking. He frowned and suddenly thought of the rumors related to Chuyu. Each and every one of them was unbelievable. Originally, he didn't take Chuyu too seriously and only thought that he was a young boy who loved to play around. No matter what, he was just a little more talented and lucky. But now he realized that he was wrong. To be able to make an adult steel spine beast willingly give up its bloodline, what exactly did Chuyu do in the Beast Park these few days? Actually, Chu Luiwei didn't do anything. She was just cultivating and planning to break through to rank 8 warrior. A few days had passed, and she maintained the same posture. While devouring the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, she completely merged the power stored in the water droplet with herself. Even she was shocked by the formation needed for this breakthrough, because this had long surpassed the scale of her breakthrough to rank 8 warrior in her previous life. But from the beginning to the end, she had done her best. Vaguely, she felt an invisible barrier. In her heart, she was certain that was the threshold of rank 8 warrior. She held her breath, gathered her strength, and charged toward the barrier. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1268. Rumble. A huge energy wave suddenly came out from the cave. Elder Yu's heart skipped a beat. This commotion, was Chuyu really just breaking through to the 8th stage? He had cultivated for many years and had seen many cultivators trying to break through this threshold. There was no lack of outstanding geniuses among them. However, he had never seen anyone who could cause such a huge wave. Even when some cultivators broke through to the 9th stage, there wouldn't be such a huge commotion. Elder Yu clenched his fists tightly and had the urge to scold someone. Before coming in, he had clearly told Chuyu to honestly tell him his strength. At that time, he thought that he had already said it, but he didn't expect that there was still something hidden. When this matter was over, he would definitely teach Chuyu a lesson. Roar! A loud and excited roar suddenly came from another mountain peak not far away. This sound was like a mysterious mechanism had been opened in an instant. That unknown and terrifying flood had already poured down before anyone could react. Screech dash, in another direction, another sharp screech rang out. Following that, all kinds of sounds came from all directions. Those magical beasts that had quietly arrived and had been waiting quietly finally couldn't hold back and bared their fangs. The roars that rose and fell were filled with endless greed and lust. Although the killing had yet to truly begin, the air was already filled with a thick smell of blood. Elder Yu's back suddenly broke out in cold sweat. The number of magical beasts that had been lured over this time was much more than what he had expected. Under the gloomy sky, figures filled with murderous intent walked out from the lofty mountains and lofty ridges, heading towards the mountain peak in the middle. Elder Yu lowered his head to take a look, and his scalp went numb. There were simply too many of them. The commotion caused by Chu Yu's breakthrough was too big. Other than the magical beasts nearby, even some of the magical beasts in the distance sensed the commotion and rushed over. If he didn't think of a way to solve it in time, the number of magical beasts that gathered here would only increase. Elder Yu's body tensed up as his mind raced, hoping to find a solution as soon as possible. How could it be so easy? Now, generally speaking, there were only two directions. One of them forcefully interrupted Chu Yu's breakthrough and quickly brought him away from this place. The other was to drive away all these magical beasts and save Chu Yu from danger. But no matter which one it was, it sounded impossible. When a cultivator wanted to break through, they needed an absolutely stable environment. Any interference could cause him to fail. In the worst-case scenario, it could cause him to never be able to cross the shackle again. If he did this, what if he ruined Chu Yu? Not to mention, Chu Yu still had an adult steel spine beast guarding him. A steel spine beast that was willing to give up its own cubs in order to protect him. Once it sensed that someone was approaching, what kind of power would it erupt with? Just thinking about it was frightening. As for the second method, Elder Yu admitted that he didn't have this ability. Even if he had been patrolling this area all year round, he would definitely not be a match for so many magical beasts. In a moment of desperation, Elder Yu finally took out his green jade token and sent out a distress signal. Chu Yu is in danger, help him. It was already nighttime. Elder Bo Yen and the others arrived at Thousand Wine Mountain and planned to continue repairing it. But just as he stood still, he suddenly sensed something and his expression changed. Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at him strangely and asked, "What's wrong?" Elder Bo Yen didn't say anything and directly took out his green jade token. A line of words slowly appeared. Elder Bo Yan's pupils shrank. Sensing the change in his aura, Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at each other and felt uneasy. "I have something to do, I have to leave first," Elder Bo Yen hurriedly said and was about to turn and leave. "Hey, what's going on?" Elder Ouyang couldn't help but ask. They rarely saw such an expression on Elder Bo Yan's face. Elder Bo Yen paused and said, "There's a problem at the Beast Park. I'll go take a look first." Beast Park? Doesn't that mean that something happened to Chu Yu? But Yu and the others have been. Before Elder Ouyang could finish his sentence, he suddenly fell silent. This news obviously came from those few people. It could be seen that the matter was no longer within their control. "Let's go together." Shang Yusen made a prompt decision. Elder Bo Yen shook his head. "You guys can continue to stay here. After all, there's a great Xian formation at the Beast Park. Yu and the others are also there. Nothing should happen for a while. However, if you guys follow me, you'll be too big of a target and attract too much attention." Only a few of them knew that Chu Yu was locked up in the Beast Park. If this news spread, their previous efforts would be wasted. Elder Ouyang and Elder Bo Yen looked at each other and could only agree. "If there's any problem, we'll rush over immediately." Elder Bo Yen nodded. With a tap of his foot, he quickly left. Splash! The sound of water suddenly came from the mouth of the spring. Elder Ouyang instantly became alert. "What's the situation?" Shang Yusen quickly went forward and carefully checked the surroundings. He heaved a sigh of relief. "Nothing, it seems like a stone at the side fell into the spring." Elder Ouyang was skeptical and went over to take a look personally. He was only relieved after that. "It's good that nothing happened. We've already reached such a critical juncture. We can't afford to make any more mistakes." At the same time, Elder Wanzheng, who was arranging the medicinal herbs in his residence, also received Elder Yu's message. When he saw the line of words on the green jade token, he was so shocked that he stood up abruptly and flipped the table over. The dozens of precious medicinal herbs that were neatly arranged on the table all fell to the ground and mixed together. However, Elder Wanzheng couldn't care less about this. He took off and left. "I should have stayed there and not left." In the blink of an eye, his figure disappeared into the night outside the door. Boom! Another wave of energy spread out from the cave. At this moment, the Xian formation barrier in the sky suddenly flickered. Elder Yu quickly flew up, and with a wave of his sleeve, an opening appeared on the profound formation. A figure quickly rushed in. It was Elder Bo Yen. "How's Chuyu?" Elder Bo Yen couldn't wait to ask Elder Yu when he saw him. Elder Yu didn't have time to answer before he saw another person flying over. "Disciple! Disciple!" Elder Wanjing shouted anxiously. After entering, he saw Elder Yu and immediately went forward and grabbed his wrist. "Where's my disciple? How is he now?" Elder Yu swallowed his saliva with difficulty and pointed downwards. "There, mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 1269. Elder Wanzheng and Elder Wanzheng looked in the direction of his finger, and both of them were speechless. Amidst the rolling mountain range, a towering mountain peak could be seen. It was no different from the other mountains, but at this moment, it had become the sole focus of attention. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, forming a huge vortex that was almost connected to the mountain peak. Wind and thunder roared, as if the mountain would be destroyed at any moment. Below, the surroundings of the mountain peak were already surrounded by numerous magical beasts. Some were crawling beside the rocks, some were standing on the branches, and some were hiding in the ravines. In short, all kinds of magical beasts had gathered from all directions. At first glance, the lowest level rank 9 was at the outermost periphery, while the innermost circle was actually filled with divine beasts. The pressure of one divine beast was already very shocking, let alone when so many of them gathered together. Cold and greedy killing intent flashed in the countless pairs of cold and ruthless eyes that were looking at the mountain in the middle. Space seemed to have frozen, making people's hair stand on end. Just looking at it from afar was enough to suffocate people. Elder Wanzheng and Elder Wanzheng were stunned on the spot. They never thought that they would see such a scene after coming here. This, Elder Wanzheng opened his mouth, his lips pale. "Where is Chuyu?" Elder Yu swallowed his saliva with difficulty. "He's in a cave on that mountain." Actually, anyone who saw this scene could easily guess Chuyu's position. Not to mention these two experienced and knowledgeable elders. He just didn't want to believe it, because this was too frightening and worrisome. Why is he there? No, that's not right. Is he okay now? Elder Wanzheng unconsciously tightened his grip on Elder Yuyu's wrist. The latter knew that he was worried and hurriedly explained. "Don't worry, he's still fine." However, Elder Wanzheng was still unable to calm down. Even if everything was fine now, who could guarantee what would happen in the next moment? Elder Bo Yen was relatively calmer. After looking around carefully, a trace of suspicion flashed across his eyes. Is Chuyu preparing to break through? This was basically the only answer that could cause such a situation. Elder Yu nodded. But isn't he only at the middle of the 7th rank? Even if he wants to break through, he shouldn't have caused such a huge commotion. He's not trying to break through to the peak of the 7th step. Elder Yu took a deep breath. He's trying to break through to the 8th step in one go. Elder Wanzheng subconsciously looked at him and frowned. How is this possible? Elder Yu didn't say anything and just looked at him helplessly. Why would he need to lie about something like this? Yu is right. This is indeed not the energy of heaven and earth that can be activated when one is preparing to break through to the peak of the 7th step. I even feel that this should only happen when one is breaking through to the 9th step. Elder Bo Yan's gaze swept across the many magical beasts below, and he felt rather regretful. I can only blame myself for not making things clear to that child back then. Now that things have turned out like this, Elder Wanjing rubbed his face hard. No, it's my dereliction of duty as a master. That day on the road, he had told Chuyu many things, but he had missed this. He clearly knew that the child had outstanding talent, but how could he forget the most important point? Elder Bo Yen patted him on the shoulder to comfort him. Wanzheng, things have already turned out like this. Let's not be in a hurry to blame ourselves. It's more important to get Chuyu out first. After all, Chuyu had just broken through to the middle of the 7th step not long ago. Who would have thought that he was going to break through again so quickly? And he was going to break through to the 8th step. This series of events had happened too quickly and too suddenly, and they didn't even have time to react. Elder Wan Zheng's face was filled with worry. Save? How can we save him now? Usually, these magical beasts were more reasonable, but the current situation was special. They were controlled by impulse and greed, and couldn't listen at all. It was even more impossible to use force. Even if the few of them worked together, they wouldn't be able to defeat these magical beasts. Elder Yu saw that the two of them were filled with worry and added, "Actually, there's still room to turn things around. Chu Yu isn't alone now. Look at the position halfway up the mountain." The two of them followed his gaze and looked over. That's a steel spine beast? The corner of Elder Wan Zheng's eyes twitched. That's right. But that steel spine beast isn't attacking Chu Yu, but to protect him. As soon as he said that, Elder Bo Yen and Elder Wan Zheng looked at him with an extremely strange gaze. Elder Yu smiled bitterly. It's true for her. A roar suddenly came from not far away. Grief and despair. They all looked over, and only then did they see that there were two demonic beasts fighting on top of the mountain. No, to be precise, it should be a one-sided slaughter. The one that was attacking crazily was a golden cloud leopard that was brown all over and had golden spots on its body. On the ground in front of it, there was a steel spine beast that was covered in blood and on the verge of death. More than half of the steel needles on its back were broken, and its body was covered in wounds. There was almost no place that was unscathed. Most of them were caused by the bite of this golden cloud leopard. That's the cub of the steel spine beast. Elder Yu sighed helplessly. In order to protect Chu Yu, its mother chose to stay in the cave and didn't go down to save it. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1270. It sounds unbelievable, right? But it is the truth. I saw it with my own eyes. Of course, all of you have witnessed it now. Elder Yu shook his head. I don't know what Chu Yu did to make that adult steel spine beast act like this. It would rather sacrifice its own bloodline to protect him. Elder Bo Yen and Elder Yu were shocked and fell silent. But even with that steel spine beast, he might not be able to hold on for long. Elder Yu looked at the sky. It usually takes a long time to break through to rank 8. I'm not sure when Chu Yu will be able to break through. But once these magical beasts attack together, I am afraid. Not to mention, Chu Yu might fail to break through. That would be even worse. Elder Bo Yen suddenly said, if we can lure the tiger away from the mountain, that won't work. Chu Yu was about to break through and countless heaven and earth energy was being mobilized by him. In the eyes of these magical beasts, there was nothing more desirable than this. Elder Yu had been guarding the beast park for many years and was more experienced than the others. If even he said so, it meant that it was really impossible. And under such circumstances, it is basically impossible for us to get close to that mountain and take him away. The adult steel spine beast in front of the cave will obviously fight to the death against the invaders. We are included in that. Also, there are so many magical beasts watching us. If we break in now, not only will it not help the situation, it might even agitate them and force them to attack. This won't work, that won't work. Then what should we do? Elder Wan Zheng couldn't help but shout at Elder Bo Yen. I told you not to send him here. Danger. You didn't listen. Bo Yen, if anything happens to my disciple, I will not let you off. Facing Elder Wan Zheng's anger, Elder Bo Yen didn't get angry. This is Lingxiao College. The dean isn't here, so I am in charge. With me here, I will not let anything happen to Chu Yu. His sonorous tone gradually calmed Elder Wan Zheng down. He closed his eyes. Bo Yen, I am sorry. I lost my composure just now. Let's not talk about this now. The most important thing is to think of a way to bring him out. Rumble. Another shocking energy ripple came from the cave. Elder Bo Yen clenched his fists and hesitated for a long time. Let's wait for him to break through first. Halfway up the mountain, the golden cloud leopard coldly stared at the steel spine beast cub in front of it. The thick smell of blood permeated the air. It was a divine beast. Dealing with a ninth-grade cub like this was a piece of cake. Moreover, the only adult steel spine beast that could protect it had been guarding the mountain all this time and had not come down. The golden cloud leopard looked up and licked its paws as if provoking Lin Fan. Of course, Aqiong could see all of this clearly. Its eyes were scarlet red, filled with frenzied anger and hatred. There was no doubt that once it had the chance, it would kill the golden cloud leopard below. However, it did not move. It was like a city wall, firmly blocking the entrance of the cave, carefully protecting Chu Luiyue inside. Only that pair of eyes stared at the golden cloud leopard's every move. It remembered every single wound that the other party had left on its child's body. As long as Chu Luiyue broke through, it would repay this pain 1,000 times over on the golden cloud leopard. Seeing the hatred in Aqiong's eyes, a hint of satisfaction appeared in the golden cloud leopard's eyes. It wanted the other party to feel this pain. It wanted it to see its cub being killed with its own eyes. It was extremely difficult for steel spine beasts to have children. Some would only give birth to one cub in their entire life. This caused them to dote on and value their children very much. Some steel spine beasts would even die of depression after losing their children. This one was probably no exception. Thinking of this, the golden cloud leopard became even more arrogant and proud. It tilted its head and looked at the steel spine beast cub lying on the ground, almost dead. At this moment, the steel spine beast cub was already numb from the pain. It did not even have the strength to stand up. It tried its best. The only thing it could do was to turn its head with difficulty and look halfway up the mountain. Mother and cub looked at each other from afar. Its eyes were filled with longing, desire, and despair. It seemed to want to shout again, but its throat could no longer make a sound. It could only pant like a broken bellows. After several failed attempts, it finally gave up and slowly closed its eyes. 2 streams of tears fell from the steel spine beast cub's eyes. The golden cloud leopard jumped onto its body, opened its bloody mouth, and bit towards the steel spine beast cub's throat. It would definitely die with this bite. Aqiong trembled violently and subconsciously wanted to close its eyes. But it did not. It wanted to see clearly how the other party killed its cub. It endured silently, but 2 streams of blood tears rolled down. The golden cloud leopard's sharp fangs flickered with a cold light. It lowered its head and bit. Swoosh! An extremely sharp sound of something tearing through the air rang out. The golden cloud leopard was shocked and immediately dodged to the side. However, it was fast, but that cold wind was faster. It had not even completely jumped away from the steel spine beast cub when the space between its eyebrows was suddenly pierced from behind by a sharp sword. However, this was not the end. The sword actually brought it out and nailed it to the ground. Blood splattered everywhere. Its body stiffened, its eyeballs popped out, and half of its head was deformed. It was miserable and terrifying. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1271. This sudden sword strike shocked everyone on the spot. The surroundings of the mountain fell into a strange silence. However, Aqiong reacted instantly and looked back excitedly. A slender figure was walking out of the deep and serene cave. It was Chu Luiyue. She walked over step by step, landing silently, her movements comfortable and natural. Her every move seemed to be filled with an indescribable elegance and freedom. Even the wind seemed to be especially gentle when it passed by her. The sky was very dark at the moment, but when she appeared, the surroundings seemed to light up in an instant. She looked the same as before, but vaguely, there seemed to be something different. That was a change that would only occur after she became stronger. Aqiong, what are you spacing out for? Hurry up and bring it back. Chu Luiyue stood still and smiled at Aqiong. Aqiong suddenly came back to her senses, nodded vigorously and ran down. Bang, bang. Its body was extremely large. When it ran down the mountain, it looked like it wanted to trample the entire mountain. But it was extremely fast, and the distance wasn't very far to begin with. It arrived in the blink of an eye. It carefully lowered its head and cautiously and lovingly nudged the head of the steel spine beast cub lying on the ground. A sparkling radiance appeared on its silver horn. It moved closer and touched the cub's horn with its horn. A warm and majestic power instantly flowed into the cub's body. The steel spine beast cub that had been despairing and waiting for death didn't wait for that fatal blow. Instead, it felt a familiar presence. It slowly opened its eyes and saw its mother whom it was most familiar with. It stared blankly, as if it didn't understand what had happened. Jianghu carefully carried it and walked back step by step. With the support of its power, the dying steel spine beast cub recovered a portion of its strength. It only vaguely understood what had happened when it was placed in front of its own cave again. Its injuries are quite serious. I'll give it some medicine first to stabilize its situation. Later, I'll treat it carefully and nurse it back to health. As Chu Liwei spoke, he took out a bottle, poured out 5 pills, and fed them to the steelback beast cubs. A normal person would only need 1 pill, but the steel spine beast had a huge body, so 5 pills were more or less enough. The cub didn't struggle and swallowed it obediently. Jianghu stuck close to its face. Her eyes were still blood red, but the hatred and despair in them had already disappeared. What replaced it was endless joy and gratitude. The mother and son quietly snuggled together, as if nothing could separate them. Chu Liwei felt a lump in his throat when he saw this. He solemnly said to Jianghu, this time, thank you. All the emotions, gratitude, shame, comfort, were gathered in these few words. Although Chu Liwei had been in the cave the whole time and did not see what had happened with her own eyes, she had been paying attention to her surroundings before and after her breakthrough. She could roughly guess what had happened. She never thought that Jianghu would be willing to give up her own child for her. This shocked and touched her, but also made her feel guilty. I will help it recuperate. Chu Liwei paused. Also, next time, don't do this again. Jianghu shook her head. If she had to do it again, she would still make the same choice. For her child, she could give up her own life to avenge it. But she wanted her to live. Chu Liwei's heart seemed to be blocked by something, and tears welled up in her eyes. She took a deep breath, and a bright and proud smile bloomed on her lips. I was wrong. There won't be a next time. She would never allow such a thing to happen again. You stay here and guard it. Leave the rest to me. As Chu Liwei spoke, she stepped forward and raised her hand. Swish. The sword that killed the golden cloud leopard quickly flew back. Sharp, cold, and majestic. It was Scarlet Cloud Sword. Chu Liwei held the sword hilt tightly. It was slightly cold to the touch, and the eyes of the dragon head on the hilt flickered with a cold luster. However, Chu Liwei's heart was burning with passion. Even though Chu Liwei had already predicted that Qi Shao Sword's prowess would be many times stronger than all the Yuan instruments she had before, its frightening destructive power still shocked Chu Liwei when it was truly used. When Chu Liwei threw out the sword, she actually didn't inject any force into it. She even casually threw out the sword due to the urgent situation back then and controlled it to kill the golden cloud leopard with her thoughts. In the end, it killed it with one blow. One had to know that the golden cloud leopard was a real divine beast. From this, one could see the power of Scarlet Cloud Sword, a venerable artifact. It was indeed worthy of its reputation. Chu Liwei lowered her gaze to take a look. After killing a divine beast, Scarlet Cloud Sword was still bright and clean, without a trace of blood. The surroundings were completely silent. The roars of various magical beasts that were previously filled with all kinds of roars came to an abrupt end the moment the golden cloud leopard was killed. Among those present, the lowest level was a 9th grade magical beast. Of course, they were not stupid. At the very least, after witnessing the scene just now, they would not treat Chu Liwei as a piece of meat that could be slaughtered on a chopping board. Chu Liwei looked up, and her cold eyes swept across the surrounding magical beasts one by one. Her red lips curled into a cold smile. Who's next? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1272. It was still dead silent. Only the night breeze blew through the mountains, causing her clothes to flutter. The young man standing on the mountain had a slender figure, but at this moment he straightened his back and confronted the beasts. Most importantly, he didn't lose in terms of aura. Elder Yu and the other two were standing in the air. When they saw this scene, they were all stunned on the spot. Their expressions turned sluggish for an instant. Is this really my disciple Chuyu? Elder Wanzheng felt his throat dry up as he stuttered out the question. As soon as he said this, he wanted to give himself a slap. What kind of nonsense was this? If that wasn't his precious disciple, who else could it be? Look at that face. Look at that figure. Look at that imposing aura. And that scarlet cloud sword. Wasn't that the precious disciple that he had been longing for? Rank 8. He really broke through to become a rank 8 warrior. Elder Bo Yen muttered softly, his eyes filled with shock. Breaking through to become a rank 8 warrior was definitely not that simple. Many cultivators had to start preparing in advance in order to cross this threshold and used almost all their means. However, those who could successfully break through were few and far between. The most important thing was that the more talented a cultivator was, the more difficulties and troubles they would face when breaking through this hurdle. This was because after becoming a rank 7 warrior, every step they took would greatly affect their future development. Every step they took was as if they were treading on thin ice, and they couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Chuyu definitely had outstanding talent in this aspect. However, he actually broke through so casually on a broken mountain in the Beast Park. He could still clearly remember the shocking phenomenon in the sky and the terrifying commotion that came from the cave when they had just rushed over. This proved Chuyu's talent as a warrior, but it also made them more worried. Elder Bo Yen was almost certain that Chuyu wouldn't succeed. However, it had only been a short while, and he actually succeeded. Chuyu even killed a mythical beast with a single slash. If it was someone else, even if they broke through to rank 9, they might not be able to do it, let alone rank 8. Comparatively speaking, Elder Yu was the calmest of the three. He had been here the whole time and had almost witnessed the whole thing, so he was already mentally prepared. Of course, his ability to accept it was much higher than the other two. He took a deep breath and comforted her. Bo Yen Wanzheng, you can relax a little. Normally speaking, this is the most dangerous time. The origin power around a cultivator who has just broken through has a fatal attraction to these magical beasts. Under normal circumstances, they would have attacked by now. However, because Chuyu had taken the lead and killed a golden cloud leopard, they were rather wary of him. If they choose to retreat after some consideration, then this matter will be completely resolved. Elder Yuyu's words lifted the spirits of Elder Wanzheng and Elder Wanzheng. If that was the case, then it would be for the best. If the two sides fought, both sides would definitely be injured. If these magical beasts were smart enough and tactful enough to choose to give up on attacking, it would undoubtedly save everyone a lot of trouble. Now is a critical moment in the confrontation between the two sides. Once these magical beasts saw that Chuyu had the slightest bit of cowardice and fear, they would definitely attack. Whether they succeed or not depends on Chuyu. Elder Yu said in a low voice. In the deathly silent confrontation, no magical beasts stepped forward. However, they didn't back off at all and just stared at Chu Luiwei with their greedy and ruthless eyes. Of course, at this moment, there was a hint of wariness in their eyes. Before this, they had only sensed a great temptation, so they had gathered over without caring about anything else. But now, they all realized that behind this temptation was great danger. That insolent golden cloud leopard was a precedent. Those who want to fight just come forward. Those who want to give up, step back. Chu Luiwei was a little impatient and raised her voice. I will count to 3. Those who do not move will also be considered as fighting. Saying so, she raised her other hand and stretched out a slender white finger. What? A small group of magical beasts started to become restless. 2. The magical beasts standing in the innermost circle also started to look at each other, obviously trying to find out what the other was thinking. And some of the 9th grade magical beasts in the outer circle had already started to retreat. That human who had just broken through was indeed very tempting, but before they wanted anything, They had to ensure that they could stay alive to enjoy it. In any case, there was a group of divine beasts in front, and they would not get anything in the end, so they might as well leave. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes and shouted one last time. 3. This time, about half of the magical beasts standing in the middle of the circle also started to retreat. And the divine beasts in the innermost circle still did not move. Oh, that was not it either. One of them took a step forward. It was a wolf. Its fur was black and shiny, but there was a smear of gold on its forehead and a pair of wings on its back. Its eyes were very special. There were no pupils, only the whites of its eyes, and they emitted a white light. At first glance, it looked very strange. A golden black demon wolf? Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. This was also a divine beast, and its explosive power and combat strength were extremely strong, even stronger than the golden cloud leopard. Of course, if it did not have the strength, it would not have dared to take this step. Hearing her words, the golden black demon wolf lowered its body slightly, revealing its sharp teeth, and let out a low growl from its throat. This was a sign that it was preparing to attack. Chu Luiyue laughed. Good, looks like you want to fight with me. As she spoke, she turned her gaze and looked at the other magical beasts around her. After a moment, she retracted her gaze. With a flick of her wrist, the light as a feather scarlet heaven sword drew a beautiful arc in the air and pointed at the golden black demon wolf from afar. Come! As soon as she finished speaking, Chu Luiyue pushed off with the tip of her foot and soared into the air. At the same time, the golden black demon wolf also flapped its wings and rose into the air. It went straight for Chu Luiyue. When the three elders who were watching from afar saw this, a trace of worry flashed across their faces. Golden black demon wolf? This is one of the strongest magical beasts in the beast park, and it is cunning and extremely difficult to deal with. Can Chu do it alone? Elder Wanzheng could not help but ask. Elder Yu laughed bitterly. This is really hard to say. Chu Yu being able to kill the golden cloud leopard with one strike was already quite unexpected. To be honest, I feel that her current strength should be much stronger than the average beginner level 8th stage. So this victory is really hard to say. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1273. Of course, he hoped that Chu Yu could win. With the death of the golden cloud leopard, he was certain that Chu Yu could defeat 1/5 of the divine beasts here with his current strength. Although the golden cloud leopard was considered quite powerful here, it had been fighting with the steel spine beast for a long time and its combat power must have been reduced. Therefore, Elder Yu naturally lowered the ratio. But even if it was only 1/5, it was already very outstanding. The Stage 9 warriors in the academy might not even be able to defeat one of the divine beasts here. Even if most of the credit went to the Scarlet Heaven Sword, it was Chu Yu's, so of course, it was also a part of her strength. He paused and lowered his voice. This golden black fiend wolf has a high status in the beast park. If Chu Yu can defeat it this time, he will definitely be able to force the other beasts to retreat. In mid-air, Chu Luiyue and the golden black fiend wolf faced each other. Chu Luiyue sized it up and shook her head. Tiske, what a pity. A trace of confusion flashed across the golden black fiend wolf's eyes. It obviously did not understand where Chu Luiyue's words came from. Chu Luiyue smiled. I wanted to help you find a master, but based on your temperament, I don't think you will submit to anyone. The golden black fiend wolf's fur instantly stood up. Its murderous aura was awe-inspiring. Obviously, Chu Luiyue's words offended it. Chu Luiyue held the Scarlet Heaven Sword tightly and brandished it. There was one more thing she did not say. She had already decided to use it as an example, so it had to die. Woo! The golden black fiend wolf raised its head and howled. In the next moment, it moved and quickly flew toward Chu Luiyue. With a flap of its wings, it suddenly split into two. It flanked Chu Luiyue from both sides. Elder Yu frowned. The golden black fiend wolf is extremely fast, and it has a clone that is almost as powerful as the real body. We have to kill both the real body and the clone to truly kill it. Otherwise, as long as it has a breath left, it can come back again. I wonder if Chu Yu will be able to handle it this time. Elder Bo Yen suddenly said. Doesn't he have a contracted divine beast? Why hasn't he summoned it yet? If the man and the beast join forces now, they might have a chance of winning. Elder Wan Zheng was so nervous that he couldn't even speak. He clenched his fists and his palms were sweaty. Elder Yu Yu knew that he was worried. After thinking for a moment, he advised, actually, if Chu Yu really can't handle it, we can find an opportunity. Chi. Two short sounds of sharp weapons piercing flesh rang out almost at the same time. Elder Yu Yu's throat seemed to have been strangled by someone, forcing him to swallow the rest of his words. He widened his eyes in shock, not knowing what to say for a moment. Because, in the air not far in front of them, the golden black demon wolf's true body and doppelganger were both pierced through. It hit the center of the eyebrows, a fatal blow. He didn't even have time to cry for help before he died. The one on the left was Scarlet Heavensword. As for the right, when Elder Yu Yu saw it clearly, he couldn't help but gasp. It was actually a scabbard. The scabbard looked ordinary, and its entire body was round and blunt. Logically speaking, it shouldn't have been able to pierce through a golden black demon wolf's flesh. But the truth was right in front of them. From the beginning to the end of this battle, Chu Yu still only used one strike. Chu Luiwei raised her hand and called Scarlet Heavensword back. The moment the sword and scabbard were pulled out, the figure on the left disappeared instantly. The one on the right quickly fell down. A moment later, a muffled sound came from below. Clang. Scarlet Heavensword returned to its scabbard. What made Chu Luiwei satisfied was that not only Scarlet Heavensword's body, but its scabbard also didn't have a single trace of blood on it. Other than an extremely faint smell of blood, it didn't look like she had just killed a divine beast. Her movements were smooth and her mood was relaxed. However, the other demonic beasts present, and even the three elders, were all in disarray. What's going on? A scabbard can also kill? And it's the real body. They didn't even see clearly when the scabbard appeared, and in the next second, it directly exploded the golden black demon wolf's head. Chu Yu's move, isn't it a little too abnormal? Countless gazes fell on Chu Luiwei. She calmly adjusted her breath, then looked down and raised the corner of her lips. Anything else? In fact, her current state wasn't as good as it looked. Because using Scarlet Heavensword twice had taken a huge toll on her. The first time, it wasn't obvious. At that time, she had just broken through, and coincidentally, the steelback beast's cub was in danger. She was highly focused and didn't pay attention to anything else. But this time, she clearly felt that after she used the sword, a considerable portion of her strength and spirit had been consumed. If a person wanted to maintain the best battle state, it didn't only depend on the amount of force in the body, but also on spirit, willpower, and many other aspects. Just like now, Chu Luiwei actually didn't inject any force into Scarlet Heavensword twice, and it was very light when she picked it up and put it down. But the price of using it wasn't small. After a short silence, some of the magical beasts began to retreat, and the divine beasts in the innermost area seemed to be wavering. Chu Luiwei raised her sword and pointed downward. But before she could say anything, a familiar voice sounded in her ears. Chu Luiwei. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1274. Chu Luiwei turned to look. The person who spoke was Elder Yu Yu. His figure flashed, and he quickly headed over here. Seeing his movement, Elder Wan Zheng and Elder Yu Yu immediately followed. Perhaps it was because Chu Luiwei had dealt with the golden black fiendish wolf too quickly that the rest of the beasts were afraid. Thus, when they saw the actions of the three elders, they did not make any extreme reactions. Instead, they stared vigilantly at the sky. Chu Yu. Elder Yu Yu came in front of Chu Luiwei and sized her up. He finally heaved a sigh of relief. However, when his eyes met with Chu Luiwei's, the emotions in his eyes were complicated. Don't continue fighting this round. Chu Luiwei was taken aback. Soon after, he saw Elder Yu Yu's face reveal a troubled and distressed expression. The Academy spent a lot of effort to nurture the godly beasts in this beast park. It's fine if you kill 2 of them as a warning. If you really kill all of them, this beast park will. Chu Liwei suddenly understood. So it was reasonable. Thinking about it carefully, it was understandable. Among the beasts in the beast park, there were quite a number of godly beasts, not including the grade 9 ones. Some of these godly beasts had been raised here since a long time ago. Some were brought back from the outside by the elders and students through various means. The existence of the beast park was not meaningless. Some outstanding students would sometimes have the opportunity to enter the beast park and choose a beast to contract with. Of course, the prerequisite was that they had to be strong enough to take it down. This was considered a huge asset to the academy. You rushed over so quickly just to say this? Elder Wanjing looked at him in disbelief. Are you kidding me? His precious disciple had almost died here. This fellow's first thought was to ask Chu Yu to stop fighting? Elder Yu Yu's face turned red. He coughed and signaled Elder Bo Yen with his eyes. Wanjing, I don't have a choice, do I? It's not easy for our academy to raise these divine beasts. Although they threatened Chu Yu earlier, they didn't actually do anything. Furthermore, after the golden black demonic wolf's example, they definitely won't be willing to continue fighting with Chu Yu. It's best to reconcile now. Bo Yen, don't you agree? Elder Bo Yen pondered for a moment and nodded. What you said makes sense. This, Wanzheng, I know that you feel sorry for Chu Yu, but if you continue to let him continue killing, things will only move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. Elder Bo Yen patted him on the shoulder. For Chu Yu's sake, we have to know when to stop. Although Elder Wanzheng was angry, he wasn't someone who couldn't listen to reason. Seeing that Bo Yen and Elder Yu Yu both had the same attitude, he struggled for a while before finally agreeing reluctantly. He flicked his sleeves and snorted. Then you have to compensate our Chu Yu well. What happened today? If it wasn't for his own ability, perhaps. He couldn't bear to say the following words, but everyone present understood what he meant. Elder Bo Yen also smiled. Don't worry about that. Chu Yu has suffered a lot today. Even if you don't say it, I won't mistreat him. As he spoke, he looked at Chu Yu. Chu Yu, this matter is indeed caused by my lack of consideration. Whatever you want, just say it. This old man will do his best to satisfy you. Chu Liwei blinked. This student doesn't want anything now. I wonder if I can keep it first and exchange it with you in the future? Elder Bo Yen naturally agreed. Everything is up to you. Chu Liwei smiled. Thank you, Elder Bo Yen. Why are you thanking him? Elder Wanzheng stepped forward and grabbed Chu Liue's wrist. If it wasn't for him, would you have suffered so much? He was really scared to death just now. Chu Liwei patted his hand comfortingly and smiled. Master, don't worry, aren't I fine now? Besides, if I didn't come here, I might not have broken through so quickly. Speaking of this, Elder Wanzheng finally swept away his previous sorrow and became happy and excited. A Stage 8 warrior. In Lingshao College, this level wasn't considered high, especially for the warriors. It was almost not even enough to enter the school. But Chu Yu was only 16 years old now, and he majored in celestial physician. Under such circumstances, he had successfully broken through to a Stage 8 warrior. How could he not be excited and proud? Needless to say, this kid had already silently broken through to become a level 9 mystic master. Elder Wanzheng was still worried that his precious disciple would be abducted and was very concerned about the direction he wanted to focus on. But now he suddenly thought it through. What was there to care about? His disciple was top-notch in all aspects, and as his master, he could only bask in his glory. Anyway, his disciple was his. In the future, not only would he be a celestial physician, but he might even be able to go to the mystic master and warrior side to show off to those old fellows. Elder Wanzheng felt that it was worth it. It's all because you worked hard. Seeing that Elder Wanzheng was finally appeased, Chu Liwei turned around and asked, Elder Yu Yu, even if I'm willing to reconcile, the mythical beasts below don't seem to have any intention of leaving. I'll talk to them. Elder Yu Yu heaved a sigh of relief. As long as Chu Yu agreed, the rest would be easy. Actually, the remaining mythical beasts might not really want to continue fighting with Chu Yu, but as mythical beasts, they were very prideful. They had already forced themselves to the front, and if they left just like that, they would appear too cowardly. To be honest, if they really wanted to devour Chuyu like before, they would have already attacked together just now. Why would they wait until now? Not to mention directly letting the three of them come over. He had stayed in this beast park for a long time, and he was very clear about this. Hence, Elder Yu stepped forward and looked down. His dignified gaze swept across the mythical beasts that had yet to leave. Today's matter was started by you all. Chuyu killed the golden cloud leopard and the golden black demon wolf in order to protect himself. His deep and sonorous voice reverberated throughout the area. Chuyu came here to accept his punishment, and he has no other intentions. He has never really wanted to kill you all. For the next period of time, as long as you all live in harmony, he will leave when the time is up. For our sake, both sides should take a step back and let this matter rest. How about it? Elder Yu said the last sentence very sincerely. He admired Chuyu very much, and he also had feelings for the beast park. Of course, he did not want to see both sides continue to fight. If they could reconcile, that would be the best. After a short moment of silence, one of the mythical beasts finally retreated slowly. Once there was a beginning, the rest would follow suit. 3. Soon, all the mythical beasts in the surroundings retreated. Their figures were hidden in the mountains. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1275. The night sky was dark and the mountain wind was silent. As the magical beasts retreated, the thick smell of blood and killing intent that filled the air seemed to have quietly dissipated. The surroundings quietened down and gradually returned to its original state. Elder Bo Yan's hanging heart finally settled down. This was indeed the best ending. Chu Liyue's gaze swept across the dark forest, and there were ripples in the still water. Wait, Yu, what did you mean by that? Elder Wanzheng suddenly reacted. You said that for the rest of the time? Does Chu Yu still want to continue staying here? Elder Yu was also stunned and subconsciously looked at Elder Bo Yan. But it was said that it would be a month. It has only been less than 10 days, I thought. No one said that Chu Yu would be allowed to go back from today onwards. He naturally thought that it would continue, that was why he said that. Bo Yan, tell me, is the punishment still going to continue? Elder Wanzheng stared and asked. His precious disciple had almost died here. He did not believe that Bo Yan would have the face to let Chu Yu continue to stay here. Elder Bo Yan also had a headache. The reason he sent Chu Yu over was to teach him a lesson and grind down his temper, so that he wouldn't always be ignorant of the severity of the matter and boldly go out to cause trouble. But he did not expect that such a thing would happen. He had also seen the situation just now clearly. It was indeed a perilous situation. If not for Chu Yu's outstanding performance, they might not have been able to save him in such a short time. After this incident, the lesson and warning for Chu Yu should be enough. Leaving now was not a big deal. But, when he thought about how every time this kid made a mistake, they would give him all kinds of punishments, but it seemed to be useless. Elder Bo Yan felt an inexplicable grievance in his heart. After hesitating for a moment, he finally spoke. Since he has already experienced this here, then, let's just return. Student wants to continue staying here. Chu Liyue suddenly opened his mouth and interrupted Elder Bo Yan's words. The three elders looked at him in shock. Disciple, what did you say? Elder Wanzheng was shocked and hurriedly winked at him. This was such a good opportunity to leave this place in an honorable manner. Why was this child so stubborn? What's so good about staying here? Do you think it's not dangerous enough today? Chu Liyue smiled. Master, today is a special day. It's all my fault for being careless and forgetting that I can't achieve a breakthrough in the Beast Park. That's why I've attracted so much trouble. I came here to receive my punishment. If I were to stay here for a few days and leave, it doesn't seem appropriate. Therefore, this student is willing to continue staying here until the last day of the 1-month period. His words were extremely sincere. Elder Wanzheng originally wanted to say a few more words of advice, but after seeing the young man's resolute expression, he finally swallowed his words. He waved his hand and turned his head away. Up to you. No matter what, you have to come out in one piece, understand? Chu Luiyue knew that he had a sharp tongue but a soft heart, so he smiled happily. Don't worry, master. I will definitely do as you say. Chu Luiyue's words made Elder Bo Yan see her in a new light. Initially, he thought that Chu Yu would take this opportunity to leave directly. The beast park was dangerous. After today's incident, Chu Yu should be more aware of this fact. Under such circumstances, he still chose to stay. It was really rare. It was time to get to know this young man again, Elder Bo Yan thought to himself. Alright, since Chu Yu said so, we will continue according to our previous agreement. As long as you behave yourself during the remaining time, these magical beasts should not deliberately make things difficult for you. After all, with the lesson learned from the previous incident, anyone who wanted to deal with Chu Yu would have to think twice. Chu Luiyue nodded her head. Thank you, Elder Bo Yan. Elder Yu, who was at the side, suddenly thought of something, and his expression changed slightly. He stared at Chu Luiyue closely, and his eyes were filled with questions. Wait, Chu Yu, how do you know that I can't achieve a breakthrough in the Beast Park? After he finished speaking, the few of them quieted down. When the three elders met, they had already expressed that they did not tell Chu Yu about this matter. But just now, he said that he had forgotten. Other than the elders in charge of patrolling here, almost no one else knows about this, but you already knew? One could not blame Elder Yu for being suspicious, but this matter was indeed strange. Because very few people knew about this, and even fewer people knew that Chu Yu was imprisoned here at the same time. How did Chu Yu know about this? Under the scrutinizing gaze of the three elders, Chu Luiyue's expression did not change and he chuckled. It was Senior Rong Xiu who told me. Elder Bo Yan frowned slightly. He did not know that you were imprisoned here. In actual fact, he and Elder Wan Zheng had discussed and decided on this matter together. Before that, Rong Xiu had already gone to another place to receive his own punishment. Ouyang and Shang Yusen knew about this because he had mentioned it on Thousand Wine Mountain. But Rong Xiu definitely did not. Chu Luiyue paused for a moment before she smiled deeply and said, You're right. Before I came to the academy, Senior Rong Xiu specially told me about this. The three of them looked at each other. This explanation seemed to make sense. After all, Rong Xiu had even taught him how to open the academy's barrier. What else could he not say? In that case, it was quite normal for Chu Yu to know about this. He has been teaching you all sorts of nonsense. Elder Wan Zheng snorted coldly. He did not teach the good things, but he did teach all the bad things. Ordinary students were not allowed to enter the Beast Park, but Rong Xiu had already told them about this. Could it be that he had already predicted that Chu Yu would come here? Forget it. It's good that you know, but you must not be careless in the future. Elder Bo Yan reminded. It's getting late, we should go back first. Chu Luiyue bowed respectfully. Elder, take care. Master, take care. After dealing with these matters, Chu Luiyue returned to the mountain peak where she was previously. Halfway up the mountain, Qiong was still guarding there. When she saw Chu Luiyue return, the last trace of worry in her eyes finally dissipated. Chu Luiyue walked over. All right, those troubles have been solved. Let's go back first, I'll take a good look at it. Qiong nodded, rubbed the steel spine beast cub lying on the ground lovingly, and then brought it into the cave. After walking in, Chu Luiyue helped it to do a detailed examination. Don't worry, most of its flesh wounds will be fine after a period of recuperation. Chu Luiyue had to rejoice that the steel spine beast's physical strength was so strong that it could still hang on to its last breath even after being injured like this. She touched the steel spine beast cub's head. This time, I owe you and your mother, and I will definitely repay it 100 times in the future. Let me give you a name. Let's call you Ta. I hope that in the future, you can always be as naive and naughty as you are now, healthy and worry-free. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1276. Tao Tao rolled his big eyes, and it seemed that he was quite satisfied with the name. In fact, at the beginning he was jealous and resentful of Chu Luiyue, especially when he was in a desperate situation and constantly sent signals for help to his mother, but he never got a response. He and his mother depended on each other. From the beginning of his memory, his mother had always treated him very well. He often made trouble outside, and his mother always protected him and didn't let any animals bully him. But when this person came, everything suddenly changed. He found that in his mother's heart, this person was more important than him. When he thought that he was going to die, this kind of emotion reached the peak. But she saved him, and her eyes were full of guilt and apology. Cao Cao suddenly felt that he couldn't be angry anymore. Especially the smell of her body was very good, which made him want to get close to her unconsciously. Yes, he wanted to get close to her at the beginning, but it was a pity that she seemed to misunderstand. His mother also kicked him several times for this. Cao Cao glanced at his mother, thinking of her despair and sadness when she ran towards him, and suddenly he was relieved. He closed his eyes and rubbed gently in Chu Luiyue's palm. Chu Luiyue felt warm in her heart. She went to the side, took out the medicine tripod and herbs, and began to prepare to refine medicine. Boom! A ball of crimson flame burned fiercely in the medicinal cauldron. The big cave was lit up. A lot of herbs were thrown in by Chu Luiyue in an orderly way. A strong smell of medicine with a bit of bitterness gradually spread. Chu Luiyue looked at the rising flame in the medicine tripod and the medicine soup that gradually merged together, and then she exhaled gently. She had to say, it was really cool after breaking through to the 8th stage. Her vigilance to the surroundings improved a lot, and her whole body seemed to have been baptized, light and free. Even when she was refining medicine, she felt a lot easier. This breakthrough finally digested the force that she had robbed from Taizu in the North Sea. But in addition, there was actually more power stored in the water droplets. Those things would only appear when he made a breakthrough in the future. Chu Luiyue even felt lucky that she broke through in the beast park this time. Although many evil beasts besieged her, it was scary but not dangerous. Most importantly, the only people who had witnessed her breakthrough were those few elders. Ordinary practitioners would never have such a movement when they broke through to the 8th stage. The more people knew it, the more difficult it was for her to hide her identity. She didn't have to worry about these people. But if she wanted to break through in the future, she was afraid that she had to prepare in advance. After her abilities increased, Chu Luiyue's refining speed became much faster. After a while, she fed the decoction to Cao Cao. Then she dealt with some herbs and covered the wounds on Cao Cao's body with them. Fortunately, she had a lot of herbs, so it was enough. Chu Luiyue decided to seek reimbursement from Elder Wan Zheng after she left. After Cao Cao's injury was completely treated, an hour had passed. Chu Luiyue helped Qiong to refine the elixir and adjust her blood. Although it didn't suffer any trauma, it had suffered great mental damage when it saw its child being beaten and almost killed. After dealing with the things here, Cao Cao had fallen asleep. Qiong looked at it with love and care. Chu Luiyue patted Qiong. Have a good rest today. We'll talk about other things tomorrow. There was no doubt that this was an extremely thrilling night. On the way back, Elder Bo Yen didn't talk much. When they were about to leave, Elder Bo Yen finally stopped him. Wan Zheng. Elder Wan Zheng turned back. Elder Bo Yen was silent for a moment. He seemed to hesitate. Chu Yu's situation, did you know it before? Of course, Elder Wan Zheng knew what he was asking, so he shook his head. I don't know. He has just broken through to the 8th rank, and he has already caused such a huge commotion. Elder Bo Yen took a deep breath. Find a time to ask him how many lightning tribulations he summoned when he broke through to the 7th rank. Elder Wan Zheng also nodded in agreement. At the beginning, when Chu Yu came in, he only said that he was a 7th stage warrior. At that time, many people looked down on him. Even they thought that Chu Yu specialized in heavenly medicine and wasn't good at other cultivation, which was why he was like this. But now it seemed that it was not the case. His talent in these few areas is almost on par with each other. Wan Zheng, you have picked up a good apprentice. Even Elder Bo Yen couldn't help but envy. It was enough to have such a student. Elder Wan Zheng was happy in his heart, and there was a smile at the corner of his eyes. Of course, I have always had a good eye. For so many years in the academy, he had taught many students, but there were only a few who were accepted as disciples. In recent years, there was no one. To be honest, other than that girl back then, Chuyu was the only one that caught my eye. I originally thought that he was only good at celestial physician, but I didn't expect. Elder Wan Zheng's face revealed a trace of nostalgia. Now that I think about it, these two kids are really quite similar. Even the fact that their origins were unknown was the same. Elder Bo Yen laughed. It's all in the past, let's not talk about it. If you want to know about his background, find time to ask Rong Xiu, wouldn't you know? Elder Wan Zheng chuckled and turned to leave. That's not necessary. If this kid is willing to say, then say it. If not, I will still pamper him. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1277. The night passed quickly. When the morning sun shone into the cave, Chu Luiwei opened her eyes. After a night's rest, her body had basically recovered to the best state. She stood up and stretched her muscles and bones. She could clearly feel that her body was much stronger than before. The vigorous force was running in her limbs and bones. She felt extremely comfortable. This was the feeling of becoming stronger. Chu Luiwei smiled in a good mood. She really didn't know how she would feel when she returned to the 9th level of warrior. There was a slight sound next to her. Chu Luiwei turned her head and saw that Tao Tao had also woken up. At this time, Tao Tao was blinking his eyes and looking at her. Tao Tao was lying on the ground. He was tightly bandaged. He looked like a big patched ball. Chu Luiwei blinked at him. Tao Tao seemed to be caught doing something bad in an instant. He closed his eyes guiltily. Chu Luiwei almost laughed out. At this time, Chiong also woke up. He rubbed Tao Tao's head helplessly and dotingly. Chiong Tao, I'll go out? Chu Luiwei said. Chiong raised his eyes and looked over. Even Tao Tao opened one of his eyes. It was a pity that Tao Tao's eyes were as big as a lantern. Although he tried his best to open a slit, it was still very obvious. Chu Luiwei had to pretend that she didn't see it. She explained to Chiong, I didn't have time to tell you before. I was punished here because I did something wrong. The punishment is 1 month. Since I'm here, it's not appropriate to stay here all the time. I have to go out. What do you think? In fact, Chiong didn't agree very much. There was a trace of worry in his eyes. After the battle yesterday, Chu Luiwei was now in a delicate balance with those evil beasts in the Beast Park. If she went out now, it was still a little dangerous. Chiong stood up. It seemed that he was going to go with her. Chu Luiwei shook her head. Chiong, I can go by myself. You stay here and take good care of Tao Tao. After the patrol, I'll come back naturally. Seeing that it was still worried, Chu Luiwei waved the Scarlet Heaven Sword in his hand and smiled. They couldn't do anything to me yesterday, so they won't do anything to me today. Looking at the Scarlet Heaven Sword, Chiong subconsciously took half a step back. Only then did it relax and nod at Chu Luiwei. Chu Luiwei put away Scarlet Heaven Sword and walked outside. The Beast Park occupied an extremely large area with dozens of lofty and steep mountain peaks. The forest was lush and dense. When the breeze blew, the pines rustled. It was early in the morning, and the white fog in the middle of the mountain had yet to disperse, surging with the wind. Chu Luiwei took a deep breath. The cool air was refreshing, and it seemed to make him feel much more refreshed. She looked around her surroundings as far as she could. Where is the golden black demon wolf's cave? She asked in her heart. After a while, the three-eyed eagle's voice rang out. Southeast, behind 3 mountains. Chu Luiwei looked in the direction and saw an extremely steep mountain peak. With a tap of her foot, she soared into the air and headed straight there. Why are you going there? The three-eyed eagle couldn't help but ask. Yesterday, before Chu Luiwei went to rest, she specifically asked if it could find the location of the corresponding demon beast through its aura. After it gave an affirmative answer, Chu Luiwei didn't say anything else. In the end, she wanted to go there early in the morning. There's only one golden black demon wolf in this entire beast park, and you killed it yesterday. Why are you going to its cave? Chu Liuyue's thin lips curled up slightly. The golden black demon wolf is a divine beast, and there are many good things in its cave. If I don't go there, won't others benefit from it? Of course, it should be said that other beasts benefit. The three-eyed eagle couldn't refute this reason, so it tactfully shut its mouth. After Chu Liyue broke through to the 8th level, her speed nearly doubled. This allowed her to reach the mountain peak where the golden black demon wolf's cave was located in 15 minutes. Suspended in midair, she saw the cave halfway up the mountain. Compared to Qiong's cave, this one was about half as small. However, as the golden black demon wolf's strength and level were considered one of the best here, Chu Liyue didn't need to think to know that there must be many good things hidden inside. However, just as she was about to go over, she suddenly heard the three-eyed eagle's low voice. Wait, there's another demon beast in there. Chu Liyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. Looks like I'm not the only one who has eyes on this treasure. She crossed her arms and stared at that place with a lazy expression. She murmured with a faint smile, "Can you find out what kind of demon it is?" The three-eyed eagle paused. The silver-eared piebald beast is also a divine beast. It's cunning but timid. Usually, it likes to do sneaky things. It doesn't have a good reputation among the divine beasts. Its strength is far inferior to the golden black demon wolf's. I think it's very bold. It even dares to take my things. Chu Liyue said slowly. In the beast park, there was an unwritten rule. If one party was killed by the other, then everything of the party, including the territory, would belong to the other party. Chu Liyue killed the golden black demon wolf yesterday. Everything in this cave should belong to her. Moreover, she killed it in front of so many demon beasts. The news should have spread here long ago. There wouldn't be any demon beast that didn't know about this. This was also why she didn't rush over immediately after the incident yesterday. Looks like in these few years, this place has been much more chaotic than before. Chu Liyue tucked her fringe behind her ear and smiled faintly. If it was in the past, everyone would be well behaved. Why would they do such a thing? What do you plan to do? The legendary three-eyed eagle asked. It didn't know why, but from Chu Liyue's words, it faintly sensed a trace of inexplicable impulse. She seemed to have made up her mind. Chu Liyue smiled lazily. What else can I do? Naturally, I'll teach them not to break the rules. At this moment, a figure walked out of the cave. It was a demon beast that looked like a lion or a tiger. Its pointy ears were silver in color and its body was covered with crisscrossing flower spots. It seemed to be biting something in its mouth. It stuck its head out and looked around, intending to escape quickly. How many times has it been? A clear voice with a hint of laziness could be heard. The silver-eared spotted beast was shocked and hurriedly looked up. When it saw that the person was Chu Liyue, it was so shocked that it took a few steps back. Chu Liyue tilted her head and glanced at the thing in its mouth. It was a piece of dark gold stone about the size of a fist. Under the sunlight, it emitted a faint glow. Dark gold condensed stone. This was a treasure that could only be found in the habitat of the golden black demon wolf. It was incomparably hard and contained an extremely rich energy. It was very precious. The silver-eared spotted beast only hesitated for a moment before it spat out the dark gold condensed stone in its mouth. Chu Liyue narrowed her eyes and smiled. Don't you think it's too late to regret now? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.